I do now.
Okay, perfect. I think we've got everybody here. We're going to record this so people can go in and rewatch it. We have a great speaker lined up today. Barbara is going to go ahead and introduce her and give you some background information. Take it away, Miss Barbara.
Thank you, Madam Chair Trina. I am so excited to be able to introduce our speaker today. I have an opportunity to work with Nicole Cottle and just think the world over. She's amazing, incredibly successful in her career, and just a model leader within our ChamberWest footprint. So Nicole Cottle is the Director of Community Economic Development, West Valley City. She began her career with the city in 1999 as an assistant city attorney. She has since been appointed to Director of Community Economic Development and also acts as an assistant city manager in the city's general counsel. She holds a law degree from the University of Wyoming and has practiced all types of corporate, municipal, transactional, and civil law. In addition to her appointed responsibilities, she works on special assignments as the city's legislative liaison, coordinating the city's legislative priorities during each legislative session. Nicole also serves on our Legislative Affairs Committee, where we really appreciate her expertise as well. She was recognized in Utah business as one of Utah's 40 under 40. She has served on the Lieutenant Governor's Task Force on Affordable Housing, the Utah chapter of Make-A-Wish Foundation, and she currently sits on the board of the Utah Land Use Institute, the state's Indigent Defense Commission, the Chamber of Commerce Legislative Affairs Advisory Board, and the Urban Land Institute Board, the University of Utah Opportunity Scholars Board, as well as the Salt Lake County Intergenerational Poverty Task Force. And I believe, Nicole, you also sit as the city's representative on the Utah Inland Park Board Authority as well. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Nicole Cottle.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate so much being here. This is so fun. And isn't it awesome that the Chamber does these really great programs? I know that there are many programs that the Chamber puts on, and I just think it's nice, and especially nowadays, it's nice to have a way to have conversations that are fun and take us out of our normal daily grind. I think the daily grind has gotten extra special the last few months, so I think it's just so great that the Chamber does this, and I'm flattered to be asked, and appreciate the nice introduction. And as Barbara mentioned, I do wear a lot of hats at this city, but I think really truly I see all of that as just such a great opportunity. I've been given a good opportunity to work at what I think is the best city in the world, but for sure in the state, and so many great opportunities to serve the people. So it's a real privilege, and it's a privilege to be with you all here today to talk a little bit about leadership. And I'm not sure that I'm by any stretch of the imagination an expert on this topic. And when Barbara suggested it and I agreed, of course, I was happy to do that, but certainly look forward to having a lot of conversation with you as well. As some of you already that are on the call, I can see some of you here already know, I can talk like nobody's business. So we're gonna just go ahead and say right now, if you have a question or something you'd like to add, just wave your hand or send something on the chat. I'll kind of watch the chat, and we can do that both incrementally as we go through the hour, and also I'll save some time at the end for conversation. I think as I look at the guests here today, I see many of you that I know that have great leadership skills that I would love to hear about and hear from you as well. So please don't hesitate to either interrupt, wave your hand, send something on the chat, and we can talk through lots of different things that you guys want to talk about. So please don't hesitate to interrupt me. And if you don't, I'm just going to talk. And Barbara said she'd start really waving the red flag when I get close to an hour. So hopefully she'll do that as well, but please feel free to interrupt. I'm going to go ahead and start a slideshow here and share my screen with you. So just give me 1 second to do that. I think I can relatively successfully do that. We practiced a couple times here. So here we go. And you all are, I think, are already familiar with what the topic today was, but I thought it was interesting. And this was a topic that Barbara defined as this statement that's on this slide. So expanding your reach through leadership and influence. And I think that topic alone, we could talk about just that sentence, I think, for days and days, especially in the world that we live in today. I think that figuring out a way to really expand your reach in the sphere that you work in and that you live in is so important. And it's becoming even more important as the days go on, that all of us engage and really do expand our influence and our reach. And so I think it's a very timely topic. I appreciate Barbara defining it that way. And I think it's a really important thing. And if you haven't had a chance to just ponder on it a little bit, I'd encourage you to take some time after we get done with our lunch topic today, and just ponder on how you really are able to do that, and how important it is to us generally, I think, to have people do that. So I think it's a good thing. Let's see here. Okay, sorry. Okay. So the first question I want to kind of talk about is, what is leadership, and subsequently, what is influence? And kind of my perspective on that is that I think all of us have a lot of different spheres that we exist in, and leadership in those different spheres looks really different. I think we can have leadership skills that pertain to our family, leadership skills that pertain to the business that we are in, or to the other roles that we play. You heard Barbara mention some of the other boards that I have the opportunity to sit on. And I think that leadership in those various realms looks different. And I know that as you're thinking about your various realms right now, that leadership looks different to you. So leadership maybe as a member of your family is very different than the leadership role that you might play at work, or in your ecclesiastical pursuits, or in the other things that you do in the world. And so I think understanding those different roles and how leadership pertains to that is also something to really think about, and something I had the great opportunity to think about as I was preparing these comments. The other thing that I thought was interesting, again, like I said, is how Barbara included leadership and influence together, but as two separate things. And I do think that those are two separate things. I think that influence can be very different from leadership. And I think that a lot of times, many of us maybe don't have quite a understanding of how much influence we truly have, regardless of our leadership positions. So if you're on this call today and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't really have a leadership position per se, but I'd like to have a leadership position in the future, I would say to you that leadership and influence do go hand in hand. And regardless of where you are in a leadership role, that your influence certainly can be had and can be felt. And like I said at the beginning, I feel like it's so important for us to all recognize, just as people, how important our influence is in the world today. And I think that we can all agree, just based on how we look at the news every night, or all of the interesting times that we see out there, that truly having the influence that we'd like to have on those around us is becoming more and more important. So why would we want to expand our reach? What would be the benefit of that? And these are just a few things that I thought of. I think of becoming more effective. And I think certainly if we are in professional roles, which I think we're all joining from a professional perspective today, becoming more effective in our professional roles is certainly a reason we would want to expand our reach. And I think doing that, it's like a converse. The more effective you are, the more you expand your reach, and the more you expand your reach, the more effective you are. And so I think they go hand in hand. I also think it's so important, and this was one that I really struggled with when I first started my career, building a strong network. I didn't fully understand when I first started my career, and even even years into my career, how important a network was and what even a network was and how valuable that network could be as the years go by. And so I have really learned that lesson professionally in my own life. And it's not something that comes naturally to me. I'll be honest with you that building a network is not something that comes really naturally to me. And you might kind of be laughing if you heard Barbara say that I handle the legislative items for West Valley City. A lot of that is solely based on the ability to network and lobby. And that was definitely out of my comfort zone. So when I started doing that some 20 odd years ago, really being a good networker was something I really had to work personally on. But what I have found and what I have realized over time is that if there is really anything that I would say is most important, it is building a strong network and figuring out how to do that within the bounds of what you feel comfortable doing and also your capability. And what I've come to understand is that building a strong network is more than just building a network. Truly, I have benefited personally from the relationships that started as professional relationships and still maintain them as professional relationships, but truly have made lifelong friends that I count as friends through those business relationships, and how valuable that is to me, not just professionally, but personally. And I'm sure each of you on this call have had the opportunity to need a favor. And sometimes those favors are really big and really serious. And sometimes those favors are really small and not a big deal. But when the time comes that you need a really important, really big favor, man, a network comes in handy. When you can say, oh, I know someone who does that, let me call them. And they'll take your phone call and help you. And likewise, you to them. I think that really is a great way to demonstrate your leadership. And it also increases your value professionally. I think that when you can solve a problem, when you have someone to call, or you know something about a particular situation because of a network contact that you have, you become more valuable professionally and personally to your sphere of influence. And so I think building a strong network is definitely close to the top of my list of thoughts there. I also think that expanding your reach ensures your success and the success of your entity that you work for, or the group that you're talking about. And so when I have that here, ensure success, what I mean is, it does kind of go along to me with building a network, but I think you're much more successful when you have people on your team, people around you, and you have a long reach. And at the end of this, at the very end, I have a list of a few people I want to just use as examples of leadership, and I'll talk about how their very long reach into a lot of different areas has helped them be very successful, and I think that'll illustrate that. The other thing that I have found as I get older, and I kind of chuckled when Barbara reminded me about the 40 under 40 award. I'm glad she didn't say how long ago that was, because as I look back, I think, wow, that was actually kind of a long time ago. We're going to pretend like it was just yesterday, but it was not. But as I get older, what I learn is that expanding my reach into various different areas really does help me learn as a person. And that really, I think my thought on that is always, the more you know, the better off you're going to be. And I will tell you, interestingly, as both the city attorney in West Valley and then in my role that I sit in today, I have learned more about things I had no idea I would ever know about than you can even imagine. And I could list some crazy things that I know a lot about. just through experiences that you just would be surprised. And so I think the more we can expand our influence and hear each other and understand, the better off we'll be, the more successful we'll be. Okay, so let's talk about demonstrating leadership. And let's see, I'm gonna try to also just make sure I'm monitoring the chat room here so that I don't miss any questions. You guys can probably tell from my glasses that I'm also blind. Oh yes, okay, so Barbara, great question. Comment on the role that ChamberWest can play, and I think that's absolutely true, and I'm glad Barbara brought that up, and I do have a little snippet at the end about that as well, but let's talk about that for just a minute. I do think, and you heard me say that when I first started, and even many years into my career, networking and getting to know people was really kind of a hard thing for me. It's not my nature. I'm kind of an introvert, honestly. And kind of a worker bee. I love my to-do lists and those kinds of things. And so when I realized that I really needed to get out there, I quickly learned that things like ChamberWest and the really amazing things that ChamberWest provides for gives a nice, natural method to meet people, to understand things that you might not understand, to gain a network. And I think things like ChamberWest and all of the programs, I mean, if there's not a ChamberWest something happening every day, I'll be surprised. I think that there is programming of value at ChamberWest every single day. And those kinds of things really do provide a very natural way. And the beauty of ChamberWest, and I think the beauty of entities like ChamberWest, is all of you on the call, you can all see all the various places that we represent. Isn't it great that we have a way to convene together, and that ChamberWest has provided us this way to convene together so that we can learn some of these things from each other? I just think it's a very great thing. So let's go to how do we demonstrate leadership, and what are some of the things, what are some of the things that leadership mean to me? That's how I looked at this slide. And the very first, and these are not in rank order, this is just how PowerPoint suggested I make it look pretty, but the first one is do what you say you're going to do. And I think that for me in my career, it has been very important for me to gain and maintain the trust of people around me, and to always be able to make good on my promises, make good on what I say I was going to do. And this is, I think, particularly important when we're dealing with public people that rely on us for services or trust us for information. It's always so important. And if people, what I think this means to leadership in particular is that, and I've seen this, if you watch people, if you watch their body language, you'll see this as well. When people feel like someone who is in control or in a leadership role is trustworthy and they're in control of the situation, they relax and they feel more comfortable. And I think that if you can always do what you say you're going to do, as much as is in your power, and no one's perfect, everybody recognizes that, you will have the ability to really put people at ease and to help them feel comfortable in your various spheres. And I think that's key to leadership. The next one I thought about was just being present. And again, this is something that I personally, you guys are learning all of my downfalls here. I personally sometimes have a problem with this because I've got all those to-do lists I mentioned before. And so I have learned over time just how important it is as a leader to really be present. And that might mean listening better. That might mean taking 5 minutes out of your day and putting away the to-do list and the busyness and asking someone how they're doing. That might mean not texting during a meeting. And all of those things are things that I think a good leader demonstrates. The third one is earnest. I said be earnest. and then I added relentless. And those two words almost mean the same thing to me. But I think a good way to really be a strong leader and to demonstrate that leadership skill that you have and then expand on that is to always be very earnest. And to me, earnest and relentless mean you'll do whatever it takes. You'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. You'll do whatever it takes to facilitate the leadership, the position that you're put in. And again, much like number one, I think that makes people feel comfortable and safe. And so I like to really always try to do, and again, nobody's perfect, but I like to always really try to do those things in a very earnest and relentless way. And really, when was the last time you thought about the word earnest? It's kind of an old-fashioned word. But as I really thought about how I would characterize these thoughts for you, being earnest, I think really demonstrates leadership. The other one I think that's pertinent today, and that again, oftentimes I've been concerned about in my own self, is really being genuinely kind and thoughtful and thinking about others. So I think being earnest and relentless can be balanced with being kind. Sometimes when you're really driven and really relentless, you kind of get focused on one thing, and maybe just genuine kindness goes by the wayside. And I think that just being kind, especially today, especially in the world that we live in, just genuinely trying to be kind and living the golden rule, I think goes a long way. And I think it puts people at ease. And that to me is the mark of a leader. Just having that in mind, I think is important. Number 5, I have think big and then back it up. And I think both of these, it's two sides of the same coin. So I love thinking as a leader about the way that you can do the thing that's impossible. How can we accomplish the perfect thing, but that everybody says we can't do? And I think if you as a leader can think as big as you can possibly think, and then back it up by number 3, being earnest and relentless. That doesn't mean that we're always going to make our goal or that we're always going to do the big thing. But I think people like to follow people that think big and then will work for it. That to me is important. The 6th one is being all in. Those two go together, number 5 and number 6, I think. To me, that's just a way of being. It's a thought process. And I think once you're committed to something, people can tell. Those around you can tell if you're committed to something or if you're going about your daily business, checking off your to-do list. And I think there's a clear difference. And I think leaders are committed and they're all in, and people can tell. The people around you can tell. And the last one that I have here is be thoughtful. So to me, what this means is different than being kind, because I think those two go together. But when I say be thoughtful in this context, what I mean is more like along the lines of being ponderous. I think leaders, true leaders that really are trying to expand their capability as leaders, take the time, and this is hard because I know all of you on the list here are very, very busy. But I think true leaders take the time to think. They shut everything down, they turn everything off for a minute, and they take the time to be thoughtful about their next steps, about their actions, about where they're going to go next. And that's a hard thing to do when you're really busy. That's a hard thing to do when you're already a leader, which I know those of you on the phone are in that boat already. It's a hard thing to do. It's been a hard thing for me to do, and I'm still not very good at it. I'm kind of a plow through kind of a person. But I think true leaders that really are trying to demonstrate their leadership and also trying to expand their sphere of influence are thoughtful. and they think and they ponder. And so I think that those skills there are kind of what it means to me to demonstrate leadership. I think that everyone on this call, and really everyone's going to have a different list, but these are the things that, in my experience, demonstrate leadership. Okay, is anybody waving at me? Anybody want to ask a question? I don't see anything on the chat. I told you guys I could talk. I wasn't joking around. Okay, let's see here. So how do we demonstrate influence? And I think leadership and influence, like I told you, I think they go together in my mind, but I think they are just a little bit different. Because I think even if you're maybe not in a specific leadership position today, you still have great influence. Wherever you are in the world, whatever your station, you as a person have great influence on the people around you. So I think the way that you demonstrate influence is first to be reliable and available, right? To those around you, if they know they can rely on you, it's a lot what I talked about with leadership. It puts people at ease. If they can trust you and rely on you, you can watch in their body language, they're at ease. And I think that's really key, to be reliable and available. The other thing that I've learned in my life and in my professional life is it's always so great and better, even though it doesn't seem like it's going to be, to just own our mistakes and our weaknesses, and also be gracious when we're seeing those weaknesses in other people. So I'll just give you a quick example, and it's something that I learned really wholeheartedly, and it was during a time when we were working on a big deal at West Valley, and I was dealing with an attorney from outside of our city, so it was one of our hired attorneys, and he made a mistake that really was going to cost us it was going to cause us quite a bit of problem. And he didn't do it on purpose. He didn't really realize what he was doing at the time until I called him on it, and frankly was worried for my own job at that point. It was something that severe. And I can remember being so mad about that and so upset that he would make that mistake and that he didn't think about our interests before he took that action. And I just remember being so mad. And there was a very wise leader at that time that said to me, Nicole, you have two ways to handle this. You can go right on ahead and be mad. You can end that relationship, that friendship and that professional relationship, and be done with it. Or you can take a different route and you can work through this problem and give him some grace and see where we go. And I thought about it overnight because I was pretty mad. I wasn't naturally inclined to give grace at that time, but by morning, I had decided that yes, I wanted to move forward. And as I contacted him and said, hey, listen, yes, so bad, but it's going to be fine. Let's move forward. We'll take care of it. Let's figure it out. I can tell you that even to this day, and that's been 15 years ago, even to this day, I feel so much better about that situation. And it was a dire situation. And he has become one of my most stalwart networking friends and would do anything that I needed for me because I was able to grant him that bit of grace. He felt terrible and I felt terrible. And by owning those mistakes and being willing to forgive them in others, it really turned the whole situation around. And I think that kind of ability, even when it's hard, makes you very influential with people. And thankfully and mercifully, when we screw up, we might get the same back, hopefully, because we're all going to screw up. But I think that's what true influence is in my mind. demonstrating how to work through these issues and giving that kind of grace to people, I think for me in my professional career has helped me both demonstrate my influence and frankly become more influential, because that particular person in my network has been invaluable to me. So it was really the right way. And frankly, I was thankful that my mentor talked me through that and helped me make the right choice there. It was a good learning experience for me, for sure. Okay, so the other commentary I have basically is just come to the party. Sometimes some of you on this call I know have heard me say, welcome to the jungle, right? So sometimes I'll say, welcome to the jungle. And what that means to me is, come on, get in and recognize that leadership and influence, they're earned. They're earned over time. They're earned with valiant effort. If you show up and you're there and you're always trying, that leadership and influence won't be a problem for you. It will never be an issue. And so when I say come to the party, that's what I really mean, is just show up consistently, show up the way we talked about, and you're not ever going to have any reason to be worried about whether you have leadership or influence, and expanding those are going to be very natural for you. Let's see, here's another question. We'll just interrupt here with, the question is, how have you been able to stay a truly effective leader during COVID-19 and with teleworking? Awesome, awesome, awesome question. And I don't know. I don't know, honestly, whether I have. I think it's a great, wonderful question. I think that what's been so imperative for me and for my team right now is that, and we're all telecommuting right now, so it's a little different than being in the office together. But what's been so important to me is back a few slides when we talked about really caring about the other person and understanding their perspective and letting them know that I see them. And I've had situations where I've had employees that I in a normal day in the office may not talk to, but I've had the opportunity to reach out to, and they're just so thankful to have the outreach, and so grateful to understand what's going on. Even I think communication, good, strong communication that's consistent, even I would say over communication in this time has been important. Like for instance, I have a routine now of sending, sometimes it was daily update emails during the really bad times. Now it's mostly weekly update emails to many of my people. And really that's just me wanting to make sure that they know what's going on, because we're not all physically there together. And I really want them to know that things are okay, and that everything's actually more than okay. They're doing great, and the city's doing great. And so I think over communication has been important. I'm not sure that that's really necessarily led to a leadership success, but I felt like it's been important to my people during this time. And I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that. Please feel free to chime in, unmute yourself and give us some good ideas if you have good ideas on that. I'll stop talking for 2 seconds. Anybody want to add anything? Okay, good. We'll just plow right ahead. We had another great comment. I don't know if you guys are watching the chat or not. Someone said, sometimes women are a little afraid to step up and be leaders. I have to really encourage them to take advantage of opportunities and lead when it's offered. And I think that that's probably true in some circumstances. I think it's really important. And I just think as people, all kinds of people, I think it's important that we remember that whether we like it or not, or whether we believe it or not, we're all leaders and we all have a sphere of influence. And whether you're currently in expansion mode and you're becoming a leader of a larger group or trying to have a larger sphere of influence, or whether you're in just your sphere of influence as it sits today, everyone is a leader and everyone has influence. And I do believe that. And I think it's really important that you guys believe that too. Okay, so I wanted to talk just about a few of the inspired leaders that I have known. And whoops, hold on. I'm trying to see what that makes, how that makes sense. In the past, and many of you will know some of these people, some of you might not. And some of them are new to the scene and some of them are old to the scene. So some of you may remember Mayor Nordfeld, who was the mayor of West Valley City. He has since passed away. But I will tell you, I knew Mayor Nordfeld for probably 15 years. And I knew him as a police chief. I knew him at the highway patrol. And then I knew him as mayor. And a couple of the really important leadership traits that he taught me were some of them that I shared with you today. And he had a vast scope of influence and a vast leadership influence because of how he led. And one of the most important things I learned from him was I would watch him at these very difficult meetings. I would watch him when everyone in the room disagreed with the action that he was taking or disagreed with the action that the city council was going to take. And I saw some terrible public hearings where things were said that were harsh and hard. And then I would watch Mayor Nordfeld let everyone speak. And then I would watch him and he would stand up and he would say, I understand, I've heard you, I understand your position. I want you to know that you have put me in this position to make these difficult decisions and that I'm going to make this difficult decision on your behalf. And many of you are not going to like the decision, but I promise you this is the right decision. And this is how I've come to this point. And I would watch rooms full of hundreds of people, completely take a sigh of relief and relax. And the reason they would is because they knew that Mayor Nordfeld had heard them and that he had their best interests in mind and that he was willing to make the difficult decision. And I think watching him, truly, when I think of a true leader, I think of Mayor Nordfeld, and he just had so many of those great qualities, but that was one of them. The other was Speaker Greg Curtis, and some of you might on the phone might, or on Zoom might remember when he was Speaker of the House. So he's quite a character, and if you know him, he was Speaker of the Utah House of Representatives. If you know him now, you'll know that he's a character even today, but he was quite the character at the legislature. And the reason I included him here is the lesson that I learned from him was, again, it's almost like a taking courage in doing the hard thing and always being willing to do the hard thing. And I think Speaker Curtis embodied that. I watched him make decisions that were unpopular and that people didn't like, but that were the best thing. And he really showed up. He came to the party. And that's what I think is great about him today and was great about him last time, or when he was in the House. Interesting leadership style, but very, very good leader. Of course, many of you have watched, I think, Angela Dunn, our state epidemiologist, over the last little bit. And I included her here because I think many would agree that she has that leadership quality that I mentioned before that makes you feel safe. When I hear her speak, when I listen to her make a statement and back it up with facts, I relax and I feel safe. And I don't know if you all have felt that way in watching her, but I have felt the way she has approached the very difficult circumstances in our state over the last few months. She marches right on up to that podium. She says what she has to say. Sometimes it's not popular, and she backs it up with facts, and I instantly feel safe. And so I think she's a great example. What a wonderful example of leading in a hard time, when it's hard and the politics are hard and the topic is hard and it's scary, you're tired. What a great example. The last one, of course, I have on the list, and I think everyone on this phone call would agree, if you know Barbara at all, you know that Barbara is a true leader and also a true expert in expanding her leadership and influential sphere. Barbara is amazing at that. And I think if you would go back to my second or third slide where I listed what I felt like the leadership qualities are, Barbara has every one of those. She comes to the party. She shows up. She does what she says she's gonna do, and then some. She thinks big and backs it up. She's trustworthy, and she grants grace to people. And what a great, wonderful example of a very powerful woman who shows up and handles it. She has taken ChamberWest and made it into what it is today. Literally, she's had lots of help. So when I say single-handedly, she's carried that thing in her backpack a long time and made it wonderful. And again, had lots of team around her, and I know she would say that. But Barbara is a great, wonderful example of all of those things. It comes to her, and you can tell it comes to her very naturally. She's very, very capable, and I think embodies all of those things. Let's see, we have some good questions here. What sort of things do you do to continue developing your own leadership skills? Well, it's awesome. And I'll tell you, I feel that old adage, the older I get, the less I know. I feel like I learn more about these things every single day. And the great question from before about COVID-19, who hasn't learned a bit about leadership during COVID-19, and a bit about yourself and how you interact with other people? So I have felt like some of the best things that I have done personally to continue to learn more about leadership is really to expand my my group and learn more about people that are different from me, learn from people who are in totally different positions professionally, different walks of life, really seek to understand them and learn from their skills and kind of recognize the different skills that people have. And oftentimes I find myself saying, oh, I wish I had speaking skills like they do. I'm gonna try that. I liked that technique. Or, man, I wish I was good at this, and I watched this person that I kind of idolize and learn from them. And that's really what I have found. Like I said, as I've gotten older, I just have found that I know less and less every day, but I value the people around me and their different skills, and I want to emulate them more every day. So for me, it's a matter of watching and really admiring those around me and learning from them and being willing to do that. I think as you get older, you realize that there are lots of opportunities to do that. So hopefully, let's see, I think this is my last slide. Yep. So hopefully that has been of value to y'all today. I think I've caught all of the questions, but I would surely be happy to spend the last few minutes taking any questions that you all have, or talking about whatever, or if you have good advice, throw it out there. I'd love to hear.
Nicole, it looks like we have another comment in the chat room.
Okay.
from Emily Cartwright.
Sorry, let me get down to the, okay, let's see. Here's the question. Have you ever had a time where you lacked confidence in your role as a leader, and how did you overcome it? For sure. Yes, definitely. I have had that, absolutely. And frankly, for me, it was in a non-professional leadership role that I was asked to take on, that was relatively shocking to me when I was asked to take this particular role on. Relatively shocking is putting it mildly, frankly. So I have had the experience, definitely, where I have felt completely incapable of leading the respective issue I was asked to lead. And I'm not sure that I still am completely over that. I'm still in that leadership position, and I feel inadequate oftentimes. But what I did was look to those around me. And I really was willing to say, yeah, no, I feel completely overwhelmed. What do you guys think? And I don't feel qualified in this area. What can we do to put some guardrails around me? And I think being vulnerable to that and recognizing those, whether they're real or perceived, because oftentimes the message I got back was, don't be ridiculous, it's fine. But that, you know, sometimes that helps, just to have people tell you it's all great. But being willing to say, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is out of my league, and I need help, and I need to learn what to do, has been my key to being able to sleep at night. Because I feel like there are lots of things I'm inadequate at that I can learn from other people. And that's how I've been able to make my way through it, is just being willing to say, I have no clue what I'm doing here, and I need help. And the very gracious people who are willing to spend their time and effort saying, no, don't worry, you can do it. This is what I did. Maybe you should try this. What about that? You'll find that there are people who are so willing to bolster you up and to help you become good in the areas that you're not good, or recognize that you're great in certain areas that you think you might not be great in. I think that that's the value of a strong network, and it's the value of good people around you who will support you. And that's really been what I have felt has saved me in this particular leadership role that truly I am completely unqualified for in every way, truthfully. This is a great question. Let's see what else we've got here. And if anybody has anything to say on that, bring it on in. I'd love to hear those too. Okay, let's see. The next question, you guys can tell I'm old. With all your leadership roles in West Valley, what would you hold up as your greatest achievement? Wow. That's a hard question. So I would say that, and I have had lots of opportunities in West Valley, I would say that a program that we just started about a year ago, a pilot program, is the one that I am most proud of. And it's called Operation My Hometown. And it's totally a pilot. It's one of those things you heard me mention before, where we were thinking big. We had no idea what we were doing. We still don't. But that we felt like was so important for our community. And even during COVID, it has been in my opinion and estimation, a wild success. I just feel so proud of that accomplishment. And certainly it's not my accomplishment. There's a huge team pulling the cart on that, but it is it's really been life-changing for residents in our city and for the neighborhood that we started with. And I feel so proud of that and so thankful to be part of it. That's the truth of that one, but that's a good question. Let's see, the next question is, during this time, I found myself being very stressed and at times losing my cool around my employees. How can you regain your standing with them? That's an awesome question. Really awesome question. Let's see, let's be honest, and many people on this phone already know, or on this call already know this, that happens to me sometimes. So I've had to do this. So I think, again, the very best way to handle things like this is to recognize in ourselves and in others the fact that no one's perfect, and no one has the corner on the market when it comes to being cool as a cucumber. And that as hard as you try, that some days the pressure is going to get to you and you're going to do something you wish you didn't do. And oftentimes I find myself telling my two teenage kids, I do that every day. I come home every day and say to myself, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Man, I wish I wouldn't have said that. And I think that we just have to be gracious with ourselves and recognize that, and also provide that grace to others, and recognize that sometimes people have a bad day. And you may have to go to your employees and say, hey, I want you to know I was having a bad day and I'm sorry for that. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have reacted that way. Please forgive me, and know that I have your back, and I hope that you can see clear to forgive me. And I think that just being human about it and willing to show your own weakness as a leader, I think really helps build that bridge. I think if people recognize that you're willing to show that weakness, they're willing to forgive. And if you extend that to them as well when they're having trouble, then I think that goes a long way. And that's been my experience. I'm not perfect at that at all. And I've had lots of opportunities to try that out. But I think just being willing to be in that vulnerable place and say, man, I wish I wouldn't have said that, and I'm sorry. I was really stressed, and there's no excuse, but that's what I did. I think that helps. But that's an awesome question. Oh, sorry.
Nicole, there are a couple of questions. There's a couple of questions before that. One from Lulu, and then one from Lizette.
Okay, awesome. Lulu says, you mentioned influence from others and expanding your group. How do you approach someone outside of your industry and create a relationship that helps you in expanding your leadership skills? Love that question. So you heard me mention that that's not really a specialty of mine. It's not really, I'm not really very good at it naturally. I don't come by it naturally. I'm a little better now because it's been ingrained into my psyche. But what I have found helps is, like we talked about before, going outside of your normal realm, going to chamber events, getting interested in various boards and participating in those, getting engaged in your community. I think that we recognize that those relationships are built just like friendships, just like non-professional friendships are built. It's one at a time, circumstance by circumstance. And the way that I have found success in that is putting myself out there in those different spheres. And then also, someone told me this early on, and you would think this would be intuitive, but it truly was not for me. I had to learn this. And what I was told early on was two things. First, back in the day, it was always read the newspaper every morning. Today, that's not exactly right. And of course, you have to parse through all the news, right? But the reason that one of my mentors told me that is because I would know what was going on and I'd have something to talk about from the day. So I always am pretty religious about that, even still. And secondly is to ask people questions. So if you're just standing next to someone at the bus stop, ask them a question about themselves and show a genuine interest in them. And I don't care what sector you're talking about, if you can master that one skill, it opens the door to things. And so you can do that anywhere you're at. If you're at the restaurant, if you're you know, at the bus stop, wherever you're at, if you can master that skill, that's been helpful for me. And I know it seems simple, and for sure for some people very intuitive, but for me it was not, and it's really helped me in my life. That's an awesome question. Let's see, did you say there was one more that I missed? Is it one from Emily? Oh, sorry.
No, there's one from Lizette.
Oh, here we go. Okay, sorry about that. Yep. Given your experience, any thoughts or comments on leadership for women of color and their lack of representation? Yep, I do have some for sure thoughts on that. And I get asked this question a lot, obviously not as a woman of color, but as a woman, right? I've had in my career many times people say to me, ask me to speak about what it's like to be a woman in a professional circumstance, what it's like to be a woman in a male-dominated area of government, what it's like, did I ever have any experiences that were hard or difficult? Certainly, I reflect that underrepresented comment, so to speak. And here's how I've approached that in my life. I have approached that by refusing that. I have just basically always been of the mental state that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I'm 5'1" and until a year ago, no really, until 10 years ago, I looked like I was 20. It doesn't matter that I could walk into any courtroom for the first 15 years of my career and never be taken seriously because I look like I'm 20 and I'm 5'1". I always approach that as, I love it. Please underestimate me. Please think that I am not going to come to the party. Please do that, because I'm just going to go for it. And it doesn't matter. None of that matters to me. And so my frame of reference, my mental way of looking at that has always been that. It's always been, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm a woman. Wait, I'm a woman? Hold on. Let's get back to that, right? So I've really just had that mindset, and I feel like that has helped me, because I think that has done more to bring things together than any other way. And so I would say that from my perspective, you just come at it like, what are you talking about? I'm the same as you, only better. And let's go, right? And so that's how I have approached it. I recognize that certainly my experience is not the same as everyone else's, but I do have some experience in being maybe in an underrepresented class, or for sure underestimated. And again, mostly that's because I'm short, not necessarily because I'm a girl, but because I'm short. And like I said, up until 10 years ago, I looked really young. And so people just assumed that I was not bringing things to the table, and I could see it in people's eyes when they did it. And every time I saw it, I loved it, because I just couldn't wait for the opportunity to prove that wrong. And I think that's where your sphere of influence can be so powerful, that if you come at it from that perspective, that you have as much to offer as anybody else, and period. There's really no doubt about that. And come at it from that perspective and march on. And that's kind of how I've handled it in my life. So when people say, have you had bad experiences? Have you had this occur in your career? How is it hard to be, a woman in this career? That's always been my response. And it's not that there haven't been hard things, and it's not that there haven't been moments where I thought, oh, that was hard and bad. All has happened, right? But I think it's all how you frame it in your own mind and how you move past it. And that's where my thought is on it. Let's see. Looks like we have a couple of other people chiming in. Okay, did I miss anyone else? And are we at time? I don't want to keep you guys too long.
We're at time. So I think Ronnie's posted an article that she read over the weekend. It's okay to not be okay. So if you want to copy, maybe paste that, and you can take a look at it. We thank you so much, Nicole, for coming. You had such great content and information for us. I loved it. I took a lot of notes here. I just want to kind of wrap, before we wrap up, I just want to remind everybody our last event for Women in Business this year is going to be on Tuesday, November 10th. There's going to be some more information coming out from the Chamber, and watch your emails from Connie. I believe our topic is going to be on behavioral health. So there will be some more information coming for you on that. And I hope you all join, invite your friends. Like I said, that will be our last topic for this year. And then we'll start up again, I believe, in January. So perfect. Okay, thank you all for coming. Barbara, do you have anything?
Just a couple of things. Nicole, thank you so much for all of your amazing comments. You made it very personalized, and I think it resonates with everyone. I know it did for me, and appreciated kind of how you spelled out leadership, and your comments were very gracious. Thank you. If you guys don't know Nicole very well, get to know her. She's an amazing lady. And then also one other just comment, Trina, I hope it's okay to sneak this in. Registration is now open for our ChamberWest Fall Business Conference. You have an option to join in person or online. In person, we're limited to just 100 people. So make sure you get signed up sooner rather than later if you want one of those coveted seats. And with that, like Trina, wish you all the very, very best, and hope you have a fantastic remaining day. So thank you.
See y'all.